Hello everyone and welcome to what's going to be the final tier list and awards for the campaign number, whatever it was, 8? No, campaign 2 on Forex Games, never mind. I'm not sure if I got all the nations on the wheel, I assume so if I skipped someone then let me know. Should be everyone and some more interesting AIs. There's also going to be you can bet some dolls on who's going to be higher on the tier list, Austria or Grand Colombia. Just two random nations, no reason connected to that. And you can potentially, if you guess right, you could potentially win some dolls because it's going to be resolved before the votes on awards. And also, Kimi gets a free move on the tier list because he got the most nation on the nominations. Mostly because he was first to do it, although it was close. If there was someone voted on the same friends, then potentially Kimi would have been out. But alas, he gets the free move. And let's get into it because there's actually quite a few nations to get through. Make sure I actually have everything set up correctly as well. Holy crap! Hammerhout, thanks for the subscriptions. Hopefully, East Indies are going to be first. I'm not sure if there's even 10 people watching currently, but yeah, thanks a lot. Someone is trying to get the ahead on the nulls. So East Indies, majority of the time played with AI. Not that much going on, but they're no longer number one in GDP per capita, unfortunately. Just barely behind Cuba. It is amazing that they're still so far ahead. Yeah, I assume they have every tech researched by this point. What is the reason exactly that they have such amazing GDP per capita? It's the real question. And nothing unusual, but you can see they are fairly thin on institutions. They have no home affairs, no colonial affairs, no police. So this is helping a bit. This is already a few less people working in bureaucracy. And if we look at buildings on development, relatively few barracks. I mean, for their size, yeah, quite few. Naval bases, power plants, ports. I'm not that okayish amount of ports. I mean, of course, not really that many. I just mean that they do have some, and some universities. It's very interesting how they actually manage. What's their most productive thing? Is it just that the agriculture is super profitable for them? I mean, they are like the biggest world's producer of sulfur. Well, probably not the biggest, but per capita, probably the biggest. Those places seem to be making a lot of money. They are number 3, which is, yeah, considering their size, this is pretty good. Competing more than Russia. Russia doesn't have that much sulfur, I think, in their territories. But about the same as Italy, which is super good in production of sulfur. I mean, that is Indies, to be honest. For staying in GDP per capita number 1 spot for almost the entire campaign, despite being played by AI, I think Dutch East Indies goes into S tier, honestly. I think that's fair. And let's keep going. I don't really understand how and why, but I'm still impressed. Oh! Wow, that's unusual. I'm actually talking about my nation relatively early. So, Netherlands. course, still the overlord of Dutch East Indies. In like the top 10s, number 7 in GDP per capita, though I've been manipulating this somewhat by, for example, annexing bits. It's not that much GDP, but I mean, it is something. Standard of living actually went relatively down, but that's mostly because Netherlands directly control a lot of regions outside of Europe. Holland might be one of the highest places when it comes to standard of living in the world. Sort of curiosity. 31. Bavaria is no longer competing after some struggles they had. How about Russia, some of those richer regions? It's actually pretty evenly spread in Russia, surprisingly enough. Baku, 30.9, just barely behind. 31.2. Okay. $34. New York is probably the most prosperous state in the game, I assume. 34, hot damn. It's pretty nice. And yeah, I went for standard capitalistic republic with multiculturalism because it's way too easy to pass, and actually got graduated taxation because I didn't really have that much need for more money, simply because all of my pops were employed a long time ago. I managed to sneak into top 10 in population somehow. Probably because China was unifying, maybe? And that removed some of the states from there. And yeah, Netherlands also became one of the military states. I think in the end that Netherlands had like top 3% of GDP spent on military. Still nowhere close to United States or Russia, but you know, respectable. Meaningful amount. And the Dutch Empire is, of course, Dutch proper. Scandinavia, which is just someone who joined the trade league without any kind of coercion. And of course they suffered for it, but I will get to Scandinavia at some point. A lot of Scandinavians moved away to somewhere else. There's also the bits in Africa. Of course, what remains in America, Dutch East Indies, Vietnam, and Kyushu, which Kyushu is by far the richest state in the Dutch market. 27% of GDP in here. Well, those states are relatively bad, but that's simply because a lot of population is employed in like company headquarters, financial districts. Almost 500,000 people working in the financial district. This is pretty wild. Actually, the game can handle all those lines somehow. So, I think my Netherlands did pretty good. And it might be possible that we won't see as powerful Netherlands for quite a while. Because honestly, once I started this campaign, I really looked into the Dutch starting position. And I don't think it's that good. I actually think it's kind of rough because you don't have pretty much any kind of resources in your starting states. You get oil eventually, which is nice, but yeah, you have coal, which coal is like, you don't even have that much wood to manage your economy. You missed Dutch East Indies, and I'm talking now about Netherlands, which I'm actually finishing talking about Netherlands. So as Netherlands, you're pretty much dependent on the Dutch East Indies, or you pretty much have to join like maybe Zollverein or something else. So even though I don't think we're going to see as powerful Netherlands for a while in our campaigns, I don't think I can put Netherlands without having Belgium as part of United Provinces, I think it's called, the formable United Netherlands. I think this is something that's required to be on the S tier. So Netherlands will go into respectable A, I think. And let's keep going. Actually, I haven't been removing the wheel, so I will try to actually remember to do that. Let's see. Great Britain. So we're just going through the big nations for now. That's fine. So United Kingdom is a bit special. You can see by the flag. It's not what you typically think. It's corporate ethno-state, mass conscription switching into professional army, command economy, military police force, interesting. Women's suffrage, outback descent, it's a mix. A lot of people are not happy in the British Empire. Yeah, though they probably cannot really do anything. There's also like elephant in the room. Basically, Canada was lost at the very end of the campaign. But even if we disregard Canada, throughout the campaign, so Great Britain got Egypt, they got Cape Colony. They were pushing for the. Oh, they actually got the British Congo in the end. Okay, so they did get British Congo in the end. I was about to say they didn't even bully Belgium for their colonies, but they managed to get it eventually. I think this is unfortunately going to be a C, Great Britain, which is not the worst Great Britain we've had in our campaigns. We've had Great Britain go quite low. Actually, wait. What the hell? Where's the Ottoman tier? Okay, now that's better. We need to have a clear scale over here. Now let's see how it actually looks now that I added it. Yeah, it looks fine. Actually, let's just look also through other details. The army is respectable. They have been through a tough war just recently, so yeah, a lot of that still. I mean, how can I rename it after a tier after something that doesn't exist? They did go Command Economy, so they do have a lot of ownership. And the GDP did go down quite significantly. It's below even Austria. And Austria, it's not like it's like massive Austria that controls a huge chunk of territory somewhere. They just have basically their starting territories with a bit they've taken from the Ottomans. And they're like one colony. Ottomans exists in my heart. So yeah, the power block, I don't think they have any players. They do have a lot of members. Which is mostly India, but I don't think there's anyone. Yeah, so Great Britain, if they kept Canada, maybe they would still be B. Simply because going for command economy and a single party is kind of based. But it's not like they collapsed. They still have a great power and one of the most powerful, for sure. Like compared to the Netherlands, for example. But it's not ideal for Great Britain, especially considering their starting position. Which they should be. It's tough to go up. As Great Britain, it's much easier to go low, I think. Simply because your starting position is so good. And India, this is going to be real quick because India has... Have they even had a player once throughout the campaign? Maybe for like one session at the start. But even then, I was just wanting to look at them. They apparently have a... Whoa, wait, what? This is... This is kind of big, actually. Okay, so maybe Great Britain actually lacked out in one end of the campaign. I mean, they would have been able to beat them up. Unless they were busy doing something else. The GDP per capita is... this graph is actually surprising that they start to go down. There was this massive war in India somewhere around the beginning of the campaign when they had a huge amount of occupations in Indus Valley, and I think like a few million people died due to devastation. They are one of the few nations that are, wow, they are actually quite behind in tech. Wow. Not even trench infantry. And of course it's AI, it's... are they technically unrecognized or not? They are recognized. And of course they have the, well... Actually, like, when you look at their literacy, they were hovering around like 40%. Still. Like, just a quick look into Iran. Iran is the only player nation that was unrecognized. Finished production. Missing quite a few in military. And missing a few in society, but way ahead of India, so I'm not sure what India was doing. No, we got a bot. Normally I don't even ban them. Just live and let live, but when the chat is actually being used, better keep an eye. Yeah, I mean, they never got... Like, nobody actually went after Burma. Which is kind of surprising throughout the entire campaign. I don't think we ever had... Is there any other place that just left alone? I think those guys just rebelled from someone. I'm pretty sure it was occupied by... I wanna say Belgium at some point? South America was untouched, but that was part of the America's policy. China was of course untouched, and Korea because of the policy of Russia and France. So... Burma, I think, might be the only reason they just kind of avoided colonialism because they were quiet or something, I don't know. Everyone probably just assumed Great Britain would take them at some point, but they never did. I mean, for India, for an AI nation, I guess they're going to be, because it could have been much worse, I suppose. They do have a decent literacy. What are their laws, just out of curiosity? Extraction and economy. Caste system codified. You're going for a corporate state, oh yeah. Following in their overlord's footsteps. For an AI, it was fine, I guess. And let's keep going. And we get Belgium. This is going to be a short one. Because there will... Because there is no Belgium. Now, that's... If you're a small nation, and Belgium definitely, even though they have probably one of the biggest potentials out of the very small nations, like even compared to something like Switzerland or most South American nations, is it the Ottoman tier if you get conquered? Because what I'm thinking is there a worse situation than getting conquered? Yeah, if you guys don't have any ideas, then I don't either, I guess. Belgium goes into the Ottoman tier. Is it the only player nation that actually died? I think it's pretty tough to die in our campaigns, especially if you have more than like 2 states. Could technically be liberated and then conquered again. That would be technically freaking worse. Yeah, I think if as a small nation you get bonus points just for surviving, then if you're not even surviving, then you go into the Ottoman tier. Yeah, I think that's fair. So that was this fast one. Scandinavia. This is going to be interesting. They had a player for quite a few sessions, but probably like about half of the campaign they were AI. And first time they were AI, they joined the Zollverein, which Zollverein, as you can see, is having a bit of an existential crisis, similar to Belgium. Zollverein followed Belgium into the unknown, but then Scandinavia decided to join the Dutch power bloc, which, as you can see, so this was Sweden. This was unification with Denmark and Finland. Then it was some adventures, and then they started joining other people's power blocks. And they're approaching the level of population they had when they were just Sweden. Which is pretty impressive considering that in most places they are supposed to be sucking people's pops. And I mean, 22 for AI game, it wouldn't be too bad. The problem is first they joined Zollverein, which had South German Federation, which had one of the highest standard of living for a long time. Then they joined the Dutch bloc, which was about the same. What they have interventionism and mercantilism. They did get technocracy when they were a player. They did it relatively early, which was kind of nice. I really like technocracy because it has basically the same stats as one of my favorite laws, oligarchy, and also, well, they don't support aristocrats, so that's nice. Though nobody really likes that, as you can see. Nobody is happy that Scandinavia is a technocracy. Insignificant power, which is, I mean, fairly impressive. You have all of this territory, and their GDP per capita is not even that big. And sure, they're producing a good amount of iron. Probably not even close to top 10, I assume. Yeah. There is still like a decent potential, I think, in Sweden, well, Scandinavia. Just... No, wait, coffee plantations? Oh, okay, wait, what? Is it like Danish stuff that they annexed? It's a pretty good coffee plantation. They even have opium. In Scandinavian Pegu? Do they start with this as well? A good opium plantation. Okay, this is also the... I actually didn't know about this Danish colony. This is interesting. This is actually pretty good state. Well, pretty good building, I should say. They could make it a decent state. How many farmlands could you... Oh, okay, one. Never mind. Okay. I got it. I'm not saying anything. Yeah, I know they have something in Caribbean at least at the start, but maybe they've lost it at some point. No, they still have it. The Dutch, in theory, I think should have either those islands or maybe those islands, but Paradox is just nerfing Netherlands way too hard. Scandinavia, I think even for an AI nation, they go into D. They're just... Oof. It's a sad sight to see. And I don't think they even had... Maybe they had like one mass migration events that forced them to lose those people, but they do have a lot of states, so I'm not sure if they even qualify for the American event that... Or was it changed? Still, not the greatest I've seen. Let's keep going, seeing that everything actually works. Quiz! Okay, so this is going to be interesting in a second, but wait. East India Company only get one tier higher than the last campaign's East India Company. Other way around. This is Indonesia. I'm not sure how it looks on your end. Wait. Where do you see? You don't see the mouse currently. This is Indonesia, this is India. And they get a different treatment because they were AI almost the entire campaign. So that's a thing as well. But quiz! So, if you want to win free movement on the tier list, you only have to answer a simple question. And that is, I have been playing Fishy when there was technical problems. The question is, how many times did I win Fishy during this campaign? And whoever types it in chat first gets the free movement on the tier list. Okay, it's taking you guys a long time. Still nothing. Oh my god. Hammerhead, fuck you, and you're right. And let's keep going. I didn't... It's actually a pretty long game. And I haven't been able to finish it once. Pretty long as in, I think like 15 minutes. Japan. Let's take a quick look at AI Japan. Which is in a peculiar situation. I'm not sure why they still have this bit of Sakhalin. Didn't Russia have a war goal on this during their war when they took Hokkaido? I'm not sure why they kept it. At least they regained Kanto, which is one of the states... Oh wow, they employed people here pretty darn fast. There was a few million of peasants here. But that is gone. And Japan is pretty weird because they have had massive literacy throughout this campaign. So let's see. They didn't actually finish the technology tree because probably they have like 0 universities. Not even that. What is the AI doing? Okay. They are a protectorate of Mexico. And I think that's all you need to see to judge Japan putting them into the Ottoman tier. And yeah, I think that's going to be good enough for that. Maybe just look at their laws out of curiosity. Oh, they are actually for large police force. I actually didn't expect that many like multiculturalism. AI had to do this. Oh no, they got forced by United States, I think, to change their laws. And let's keep going. And we're going to Mexico, which is very fitting. Let's see. So, on the map, Mexico looks about as you'd expect them to. They're slightly bigger in the south, which is probably not even worth it. They might have sucked this population up north anyways. Hard to say. It looks like there's very few people in here currently. It's probably been changed. Hawaii is currently part of the American bloc, but they're actually an independent nation, interestingly enough. So when it comes to the map, the most interesting feature of Mexico is that they control Japan, but they are not really able to enforce much in there. They still have it though, which is something. They're part of the American bloc, which is agricultural union with market unification, military industry, because I think pretty much everyone has taken this at this point. We are spending a lot of money on military. Food standardization because it's still pretty nice. GDP per capita, pretty respectable. So even though they have very small population, man, 15 million, less than Gran Colombia, and almost the same as Chile, which is, I mean, Mexico I think starts with the biggest. Yeah, Brazil probably they they've been AI for most of the campaign. So, as you can see, the population growth has been pretty unimpressive until the very, very end. And of course, being in the same customs union with United States, who have a massive amount of standard of living, though Mexico is actually it has better standard of living on average, but it still doesn't mean that people are not leaving to go to New York, for example. Oh yeah, so Brazil has a female president. This is probably pretty rare in the game. And the interesting thing about Mexico is how many ports do they have? Not as many as I expected, to be honest. Because... oh my god. It took a while to load all of this stuff. And the vast majority... oh my god, they traded a lot with Great Britain. Okay, so... this is the profitable trade routes. Everything below it is not making any money, just breaking losses. Some of those are actually a slightly bigger trade routes because they're just in the middle of decreasing their size, like those to China. Oh my god, they're trading groceries to and telephones to the Dutch market, rubber to Austria, massive amount as well. Trading with, that's Germany, right? Sort by units, that's a good idea. So most they're exporting engines to, that's a huge amount of engines. To Byzantium, a lot of groceries here, good amount of oil, just to everyone, pretty much. Sugar, which is interesting, coffee to Austria, more engines. Oh my god, they're actually exporting even more engines to... I mean, like, I'm not even sure how we have them as separate trade routes. They are managed by different places. I have no idea why they are free like this. Wine to Italy. Okay. Sulfur to Netherlands, which, as I said before, Dutch East Indies is one of the biggest producers of sulfur in the world. Coffee to Russia. I suspect that maybe it's because they were exporting to different nations and then they united and then something broke, so it created a few trade routes and then it just stayed and they synced. And with their growth and the decreases, I have no clue. So Mexico is trading powerhouse, which unfortunately is not really that great in the game. Yeah, they're using a lot of investment rights and probably a lot of... oh, they used to have trade agreements before they joined the American market, I think. They have... well, nothing really surprising, but decently developed laws. Done all research, really good literacy. I think Mexico is going to go into A tier, just barely. If they were just at what they have, but I mean they did expand a little in America, which is not easy. Considering the difference of power between Mexico and the United States, that is just going to happen always in every campaign. And they did manage to get a small colonial empire. I mean, to be honest, technically speaking, it's bigger than the American one, because America has a few bits and pieces in Africa, and like 2 trading ports here, and I think that's it for American colonial empire. They do also have their power block, which is sort of an extension of their influence, but Mexico was not doing too bad. I wish I could see a bit more somewhere from them, but they went for like trading and standard of living quality, and I mean they have #1 standard of living. that is pretty good, I gotta say. So let's keep going. We're going quite quickly through those nations. And though a lot of those are just AIs or don't even exist, so those do go quite quickly. Grand Columbia. Oh, I don't think I've shown you the roulette. Well, too bad. So let's see Grand Columbia, the neighbor of Mexico. They do they have higher GDP? Well, not quite. But they do have slightly higher population, still very high standard of living, all things considered. Very good literacy, of course. They are, in the end, they actually became, despite playing for a kind of authority build, so maximizing oppression, they actually ended up being a presidential republic with universal suffrage and multiculturalism and total separation. And really nothing that oppressive other than secret police. Almost managed to finish all the text. Oh, I'm missing a few in military, but for South American military is always the last thing that they really care about. And they are part of the American market, right? Oh. Yep, American market is pretty impressive, gotta say. Looks pretty nice on the map. Yeah, so they basically got their Grand Colombian territory and they were just sitting the entire campaign, just building up themselves, which was their plan. I think they didn't really have any ambitions other than that. And those nations are the hardest kind of to judge on the tier list, because when you have a particular goal and you do succeed in it, it's hard to blame someone for just playing for what they wanted to. I think they will go into A tier, because even though they did a lot of RP as well, and they did fulfill their goal, except being knocked by America, which I suppose does count for a negative. But I don't think you're gonna get into S tier by just doing your own thing in the corner of the world. You have to do something with other people as well, I think. Not that there's anything wrong with the A tier. Kimi does have a free tier list move, so maybe it will be used at some point, or maybe it's going to be kept for more opportunity, for a better opportunity. France. Now this one is going to be interesting. I'm actually not sure what shape France currently is in. Exactly. And they actually don't have any debt, which is kind of nice. They do have, well, authority debt. Oh yeah, there was like a play to encourage manufacturing everywhere. They didn't manage to get to 1 billion GDP, though they were third behind Russia and US, so that's pretty nice. Of course, massive population, though behind Austria, but that's at this point it's probably mostly on Austria having a massive population. What they did was they kept their standard of living pretty low, and with the mod we're using, they stayed in the optimal window for population growth for a really long time. So the population has really grown. As you can see, it's just steady growth throughout the entire campaign, and they even lost the Italian states over here and still climbed quite well ahead of a lot of other people. There is a French power bloc. They went socialist, of course. They do control like half of Africa at this point. And they do have Spain in their power bloc, which technically speaking is democratic, so this is a bit of a controversy perhaps, but they do manage to find and hang around peacefully. Switzerland was about to join, looks like. Just something having this much leverage is something, and I think they were hoping to get South German Federation into the power block. It just didn't happen in time for the end of the campaign. And this is Spanish colonies. They do have Taiwan as well, and a few port cities here and there. And of course, the elephant in the room, they do control the entirety of Belgium and 2 German states up to the Rhine. Oh, so South German Federation was in, but they were supposed to unify. Oh, they did unify, but then they were de-unified forcefully. Right, now I remember. I think if you're playing as France, and at the end of the campaign you have decent, respectable stats, decent, respectable colonial empire. Of course, laws being pretty wacky at the end, but I'm not. It's not entirely clear whether they were supposed to be communist or fascist at this point, but well, one of those. I think more communist in the end. But if you do control the entirety of Belgium and a chunk of Germany at the end, I think you should go into S tier as France pretty much every time. Because I guarantee you this is not something we're going to be seeing that often. Unless I'm horribly wrong. Maybe unifying Germany is much difficult. But yeah, I think this is is it the first like S tier I'm giving to Joachim? It actually might be. I mean, surely I've given you an S tier at least once before, right? Right? Maybe not, honestly. I kind of try to make like a running joke of not giving Joachim S tier unless he actually pushes for it. South German Federation. So this is a sad story of playing on the patch that needs ports to trade with the global market. And you cannot do anything about it. But did the last campaigns France have all of Belgium and a chunk of Germany as well? I think this is pretty important and significant. So South German Federation, they do have a lot of bureaucracy, they do have some problems with money, but maybe if they were forcefully ejected out of NGF, it's probably a mess. Yeah, they are communist, pretty clearly. They do have... It's interesting that even the communist nations don't have that high standard of living, but that's because everyone went command economy. I'm not sure if anyone went cooperative ownership, from what I recall. They used to be basically the place that sacked all pops from the Zollverein, which is some of the Scandinavians went here, but also the North Germans went south. That's where their population... Do they have higher population than NGF? Not quite, but honestly, it's way closer than it has any right to be. I mean, when you are landlocked, then you should be able to trade freely, but if your neighbors allow it, it is fine. Well, they could trade with some people, it's just... you're just locked to the land trade, you cannot use any convoys for trading. So you're limited in both... Oh, they don't even have trade routes. I shouldn't be able to trade freely. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense as a sentence. Yeah, but they don't even have an option, and they're locked to how much they can trade, even with those people that want to trade with them. That is... Also, this, they just released it. I'm not sure when the last war ended. So they are a bit of a mess. But I mean, if we look at as a whole for the campaign, they're survived. Which is not really what you'd expect to happen from Bavaria or South German Federation. If they formed in the... Oh yeah, they just formed. Now I noticed. I'm not sure if you guys can see the market. The market is having some issues. Oh yeah, now you can see. Yeah. What are they overproducing? They do have a lot of planes. Okay, great. And tanks and ammunition. Oh, it is Germany. I think for existing and still being like a competitive nation when it comes to investments and standard of living, they should go into a... Yeah, I think. Hopefully the tier list is not going to be top weighted. Probably will be, usually it is. But maybe not too much, that would be ideal. Let's keep going. So now we get Cuba. And what's the most interesting thing about Cuba is going to be seeing how much investment funds they have, or did they manage to spend all of it? Nope, still 220 billion left sitting here. And do they have... Oh, they lost their foreign investment rights in China, because they were investing in China for quite a while. And if I were to look, how much do they own there? Really not that much. Though I guess they don't have that little construction. It is a fair amount. They did fell off when it comes to standard of living, and I don't mean like themselves just compared to the rest of the world. They do have... The population here is just those two states. I mean, I think that's all they have, right? Yeah. So they have almost the same population. They have almost the same population as Chile, but then very similar to all the other South American nations, just on Cuba. Yeah, this is... How is it? So 91 million. How is it compared to other... Wait. Okay, Spain is not particularly rich in production in their states, from what I can see. People are discussing war. Hammercoat is giving another subscription. Thanks. Nice. Everyone's going to have subscriptions now. Spain has actually fairly low amount of GDP done in their states. So this is Cuba, the richest state in Iberian Empire. I wouldn't say market because they don't actually have their own market. It might be. Yeah, and I'm a bit surprised because Iberia is... I mean, they are no slouch. Really? Where's their, like, industrial powerhouse states? I guess Benin is actually surprisingly... Yeah, there's a lot of people here and a lot of... Some of those states are actually worth quite a lot. Like, in total, this might be similar amount of GDP as Iberia. Yeah, you can see here in Niger quite a lot of oil production for France. But actually I skipped this. So let's look at the oil producers. France is number 5 world producer thanks to the oil exploration centers that come from a mod, which we will be eliminating for the next campaign from what I know. Yeah, you can see Netherlands on top over here as well. This is purely from oil exploration centers. Austria probably as well has a ton of those. I mean, for single player I think it's okay, but for multiplayer it's just way too much when everyone is using this. This is a massive production of oil. Tommy about to have an interesting lesson about subs. So, okay, so where do I put Cuba? I think Cuba really missed out on not being able to invest in other places this entire campaign. Which, of course, they I don't think they ever had ambitions of doing anything else other than sitting on those 2 islands and just deving them up. And they are, I mean, they are pretty good. Not gonna lie. Like, probably if Cuba wasn't being played, Iberia would be significantly stronger because I assume they stole a lot of pops from them. And at the end, maybe they were starting to take some of those back. Or maybe they were going to like France or someplace. I'm not sure if France has really that high standard of living. Maybe France was enough. Yeah, Russia was still dominating when it comes to oil production, but even then, I think you had some exploration on #1 oil rig. Yeah, makes sense. In Baku, almost 1 million people employed, and still some few places, some free places. I think Cuba will go into B. And I wish they spent a lot more money on investments. I think that would be a lot more interesting to see what they could have done, but I think they were a colony for the longest time, so they couldn't even set up those investment agreements. And they realized how they could do it only later in the campaign, and it was a bit too late at this point. Spain, we're just getting thematically connected. So it was Japan, Mexico, Gran Colombia, France, Cuba, and Iberia. We're just jumping around the same area all the time. Let's go into Iberia. Now people are discussing who had the most natural eco oil. Iberia is losing a bit of money. Just surprised. Unfortunately, I don't think the states... Wait. If I look here... It does seem like Navarra is the best state. I cannot look at the ledger because it's not going to be really working when I'm not on pausing. Yeah. It does seem like Navarra is the richest state in Iberia, which... I mean, they do have a pretty good company in here. It does say #1, but I think that's... There's something weird in how companies are calculated for this. And this is, I think, a unique one. So it might be that because it's the only company of this type, they are #1 company, even though there's 187 in the world. So I'm not sure how that works exactly. Check the market tab, the states. Oh yeah, South Cameroon. Wait, what? Oh, this is the worst one. Yeah. Yeah, Cuba was not only the best state in Iberian Empire, it was the best state in all of the French market. Okay. And Puerto Rico was right there. And then Niger. Only Normandy is like a typical industrial state that's better than Puerto Rico. And then we go to Benin, and then Valencia, and then Navarra. I guess I'm kind of biased because of Kyushu, which is probably a bit more of an anomaly than I expected it to be. That's least. Yeah. Yep, I realized. Don't worry. So Spain, they stayed on census suffrage, maybe because they couldn't get out of it. This can sometimes happen. They still had religious schools. So how strong were the... Was the Catholic Church still had 41% clout at the end. So they don't have really that impressive of an army, nor that impressive of a navy. Navy is slightly better actually. Navy is not too bad. But what they do have, that a lot of nation doesn't, is a lot of foreign investments. They have 2,600 buildings in China, 700 buildings in France, which is 70 million GDP, just what they have in France. And then Japan, Philippines. Can I like see the total they owned. How do I see this number? Because this total they control. Yet they really have any investments in Spain alone. So this is what they were spending a lot of their money. And I think this is pretty similar to what the Dutch had. Yeah, I don't see a number just for the foreign investments. But they had a lot more investment in France, but a few less investments in China, I think, or something like that. So yeah, they of course finished all of the technology. And their empire was, they got this, which is one of the best chunks of Iberia overall, of Africa. They did manage to annex Portugal with their colonies as well, which they kept entirely. They kept Philippines, they got Siam. They tried to get their own power block going, I think, for a second, and then kind of gave up. So I think Spain is quite strong, for sure. What I'm wondering is, are they S tier strong? I think Spain is a nation that is in position to be actually able to kind of like trade blows with actual great powers. Kind of like Italy. But I don't think they ever quite did that. They stayed probably like as an ally of France for most of the campaign. And they do have a really nice colonial empire. But I think their kind of lack of independence is what kind of bringing them down. So Spain goes into A tier. This is going fast, and that's good because there's going to be a bunch more votes for the awards, because actually there's quite a few of them. China, which is actually not named China on the current map, but actually the Heavenly Kingdom, still not fully united. The China has been played as Qing, like for the first session, then like a session in the middle as Heavenly Kingdom. They did manage to go out of their credit spiral. They were like going for a bankruptcy at some point. I think it was the United Kingdom that bailed them out for the most part. They are a theocracy, of course, with universal suffrage. Peasant levies still a bit of a mess when it comes to laws, of course. Technology, out of curiosity. Oh, wow. This is, I think, even worse than India. And their literacy is pretty bad. We kind of tried to adjust the research rate in the game to eliminate the university spam. So raising literacy was much more important, and China never really got around to do it. And they still are number one in population, which is what China does. I think they will go into D tier. They're not completely fractured, so I don't think it's Ottoman tier fully. They mostly managed to reunify the most important bits anyways. And I mean, they're kinda bad, but that's what China is supposed to anyway. And they did get a lot of foreign investments. So that's the reason they actually are on top 5 in GDP graph. Without that, they would probably be... like, you cannot see it before because for some reason it cuts off at 1908. But yeah, a lot of growth was fueled by foreign investments. 70% of the GDP is owned by Netherlands, Iberia, and then Chile, Russia, United States. Austria even has quite a bit. There was like a period that when it was played, the player actually opened the investment agreements to everyone. But AI actually only wanted to keep with Netherlands and Iberia. Which was kind of weird, but that's how AI works. Next. We might be done with this before 2 hours. Would be kinda nice for my sleeping schedule. Chile. Now this is going to be an interesting one. Let's look at Chile. I've got some people writing to me something on Discord. Nothing important. So they are in their own market. They were an ally of France for a long time. Now they are kind of connected to the United States, but they're not. They're actually now they're in. Of course, now they're in Russian power bloc, which doesn't have customs union. They have, for their size, they have, I mean, army only slightly smaller than Iberia, but a navy that actually is punching way above their weight. Just, I think it was mostly done so they could be a major power for prestige, and they do get a lot of prestige from their naval power projection. Of course, they're finished with tax, as is most nations. Currently, they are, like, we can call it American Republic, because this is what the Americans would enforce on people. They were a democracy for the vast majority of the campaign. But then France, I think it was like an accident that they changed some of their laws. And then they broke free from France. And I think, I kind of have vague memory of the United States helping them out. But maybe it was just Russia. I truly believe it was actually an accident, but who knows with Joachim? You know Joachim. Joachim, the only thing you know is that you never know. How is their market looking, out of curiosity? Opium problems, don't we all? Tanks. Well, Chile is not a place that I would expect to have a huge amount of tanks usage, but here we go. They actually have decent amount of oil production for their own needs. They're almost importing almost all of their ironclads. They're barely producing any themselves. All of the rubber, producing almost all of their iron. Okay. Yeah, I mean, at this point they have such small population and such high standard of living, they just have to import most of their stuff. Telephones they're producing on their own. But not glass, not paper, not coffee for sure. One of the biggest names to fame for Chile was when there was a huge French war. It was France against Germany and Russia, and Iberia with Chile were on the side of France. Also Belgium was part of it, because this is the war that France moved the border quite a bit north. And the Chile's name of fame was keeping some of the Belgians occupied, but I think in the end it was more like the Belgians were keeping French occupied when they went south to protect Chile. But considering how much of a campaign has happened and how poor of a position Chile is, and they still exist with, unlike for example Belgium, I think for the effect they had, Chile got paid like £50 million by the Brazilian government to be kept afloat. Yeah, I can see that. So this is like pretty much their entire debt. I think for the effect they had on the campaign, considering their relative starting position, I think they will go into S tier. Belgium did have a strong effect on the global affairs. That has to be said. Unfortunately, this strong effect kind of ended up... France used like karate force move that changed the force against Belgium. Not sure if you understood what I was meaning to say, but let's keep going. Starting to... You know, it's time for a water break. Okay, that was needed. We get Brazil. And it was green as well, nice. Still a neighbor. What's going on? Does the roulette know? Let's see. Hopefully I am recording this, right? I am. Good. Good, good, good. So Brazil was played for like, what, 2 sessions? Since 1893, which is not even 30 years. That was not particularly long time. 117 GDP. So, not particularly impressive in this area, but population is also something to be taken into account. They are in top 10 GDP per capita, which is something. Tech, so most of this tech was actually AI, and they kept quite well, surprisingly. Yeah, probably about here or here is where the player took over. More like here probably, because this is 1862. So yeah, how much construction does Brazil have? So this would be 900, okay. Not too bad. Losing this much money while having it paused is not the greatest. Still, investment pool is carrying some of it. And nope. Oh, they are part of the American power block. Oh, so taxes are at minimum to get as much as possible solved, which unfortunately, when you're in the same power block as United States, it might not be enough. And Mexico as well, and Grand Colombia, all part of the same power block. Well, let's look at the loss as well. Yeah, American Republic, and nothing really unexpected in here. They did conquer Paraguay. I mean, I don't think there's really anything that could be said about Brazil, because they didn't really have an opportunity to do anything. At the point where the player took over Brazil, the United States were pretty established in their diplomacy over the Americas. Coffee couch? Okay. The Brazilian player just said in chat, the only thing I'm semi-proud of is couch and coffee production. And by couch, they meant rubber. And first in production of coffee, okay. That's actually quite a lot. And by a huge margin as well. And rubber. I was very much surprised that in this campaign, rubber was really not that... there wasn't that much demand for it. The potential was just unused. Yeah, Russia is the biggest producer, then Netherlands, Iberia, French Republic. And those are not really high numbers. Like, if we look at some of the places with highest potentials, I look at Netherlands because I know this best. This is actually fully used. I'm pretty sure there are states in, like, Dutch East Indies. Well, they are fully occupied. The question is, this is not. Are they fully employed? Okay, those few are. And I'm pretty sure there's a ton of states. Oh yeah, here you can see half of rubber production. This is 29 out of 28. Okay. I guess we were approaching the end of the capacity for rubber. So maybe I was a bit wrong. I was thinking that actually we get still a good... there's still some here. In Netherlands, the biggest problem was actual population. Let's see maybe some other place. You can see Russian production from artificial rubber. If we were to look through here. Okay, maybe we were running out of rubber. They just needed like maybe 5 or 10 more years until we would be getting the artificial buildings for... Well, not artificial, the expanded production buildings. I think Brazil will go into B tier. Because for joining so late in the campaign, I don't think Brazil really has even that much space to do that much. And they did expand a little bit. They do have some achievements, we can say, on the market, but it's just not that much space to really show your play. Seven more. Korea? Okay, this is going to be interesting. I just want to look at this graph again of population. So the reason Korea is so interesting is because pretty early in the campaign there was a war between France and China, and Netherlands were on the side of France at this war. I think this is the only war that Netherlands and France were on the same side. And France was really trying to get Taiwan. Unfortunately, they had some war goals other than Taiwan, which meant they needed to occupy Beijing. And they kind of struggled with that. Oh yeah, they got the... Okay, let's finish the story first. And France spent like 5 years or something like that pushing through Korea to Beijing and then being pushed back, and so like being back and forth. And this entire time, entirety of Korea was occupied. And this is the result. They still haven't recovered their population. They're not even close to recovering their population from like first half of the campaign. The GDP, I think, yeah, the GDP just barely started to recover. They've had diplomatic pact reparations, well, bankrolls from Russia and France, pretty much from the time the war was over. But yeah, they didn't reform almost at all. One of their problems was isolationism. Pretty much excluded any kind of... Usually isolationism doesn't matter that much for Korea because they start in the Chinese market. But because they were removed from this market when the war ended, they actually became independent. They've been for a long, long time. They just lack access to a lot of stuff. You can see even iron. Tech is, of course, horrible. Oh, they didn't even have railways. 1917, and they don't have railways. Yeah. Wow. Even though people really try to help them, actually. Oof. This is a bit hopeful, but I think unless they actually had some kind of enforced reform, they wouldn't be able to truly recover. If they get isolationism and maybe some investments, maybe. Yeah, I actually am surprised. Like, how did they even get so bad tech that they even didn't get railways? And sure, it is a bit unlucky that they only got railways this late out of all the other techs in this era. But man, they should be finishing this era a long time ago, even with like unrecognized and bad literacy. It honestly looks like they've spent a lot more research. I mean, when you look at society, this is pretty far from like start of the game, and production because they don't even have this stuff, I think, at the start. And production, I think they don't have all of this. Military they pushed quite a bit as well. So they kind of just prioritized everything except railways. Oof. Well, this it's hard to see, really. We have two of the greatest powers still on the wheel, and they're going to be staying there for a bit longer because now it's Byzantium, which started as Greece, of course. Early in the campaign, they got the deal with, well, important thing, neither Egypt nor Ottomans were played. So it was kind of obvious that someone is going to fill this void. And at first, Actually, all of Arabia was taken over by Russia pretty early on. They used to be a theocratic autocracy, I think. It wasn't a republic. And they just got those mines, I think even without a war, just by influencing them. They got them into their sovereign empire. No, it was a religious convocation or whatever. I think maybe we can see effect of this still on the religions overview. And not super visibly, but you can see there's a lot of atheists in Oman. What? There's a good amount of Orthodox in some of those provinces. And actually Zanzibar is majority Orthodox. Over here in Ethiopia region, the policies of spreading religion actually strengthen Oriental Orthodox rather than Orthodox, because I think Oriental Orthodox are accepted enough. And now, of course, Russia is a republic anyways. So Greece got a deal with Austria and Russia that Greece was to take all of the Greece proper and Asia Minor. And in exchange, Austria got Bosnia, Northern Serbia, Wallachia, which is a pretty damn good state, especially now that they lost Venice. It's, I think, the only source of sulfur they have, unless they have some of it in here, but I don't think so. Nope. Russia got Bulgaria and like clean up of the border in the Kars and the Bruja. So pretty good deal for Byzantium, and they did set up their own power block, which is actually they managed to keep it, which is not easy task for a major power of this size. This was a struggle. They have one principle, the starting one. They almost had the other, only 3 more years. Let's look at their market, how they're doing. They're a major producer of oil. They're exporting, yeah, 50k to Britain, France, Britain, Germany a bit. Yeah. Importing almost all of the radios. They're doing a lot of military shipyard production. Most of their steel is actually their own. Importing cars. Yeah, I think they're... Yeah. The Mithrantic bloc is a major producer of arts and crafts. This is a huge art academy. Yep, that's... And still look at the demand. They're mostly exporting it to France. I'm surprised it's so little to Netherlands, because Netherlands actually have an obsession with fine art. But fine art is... Some of those luxurious goods work in really strange ways. Like, I don't understand why demand for fine art sometimes is really low, but for cars it's always very high. But I guess it's because... yeah, it fulfills not only leisure but also free movement. I guess. And transportation can be pretty hard to get in some states, depending on like what goods are being produced. For example, in oil states, transportation usually gets kind of expensive. They didn't finish their technology, but just about. Even military is almost finished. Society a bit worse, surprisingly. They are a monarchy technocracy with multiculturalism, of course, because why not? Everyone just does it. And they were pretty close to actually becoming a great power, I think. They do have a decent population, just barely outside of top 10. Decent growth throughout the years. GDP per capita could use some work, but I think they just have a bit of a problem with a lot of their states being kind of bad. What's their best state? The oil state, probably a lot of them. The race is actually 25 million, 6 million people. They did get all of this pretty much at the start of the campaign, then slowly expanded over here and managed to get Iran into their power block. Because it's important to also remember Greece at the start is really, really small. But they did have a pretty good position kind of meta-wise. Because there was just no one in here from players, and great powers probably wouldn't allow each other to just take all of this stuff. They did manage to keep all of it. So I think they're definitely A tier. I'm just wondering whether they should go into S tier. I think because they made their own power block and actually stayed independent throughout the pretty much entire campaign, I think they do deserve to go into S tier. And yep, here they go. Let's go! Final 5. Austria. Are we going to have like US-Russia final face-off? So Austria is interesting in that they did really little throughout this campaign. They took all of this stuff in the south, which is, I mean, good stuff. They lost the Italian states relatively late in the campaign. You can see, so it was 80s? The 1880s, I think. More or less when they lost all of this stuff. They do have a tiny colonial empire, but this is pretty much it. Their power block is a bit sad when you look at the number of members. Is this a Habsburg? Okay. Maybe kind of an interesting close for a Habsburg. That's really what I would expect. But they do have a massive population, considering their size that they've barely expanded. This is really a lot, more than France. 14 million in Bohemia. What else is 10 million in Central Hungary. 10 million in Transdanube. This is huge states. And they lost this stuff as well, so they lost like 10 million in here. Oh my god, look at those coastal states. 4 million, 4 million. Those states are... Croatia is okay, but Dalmatia can be really hard to actually make work. But they have 4 million population here. This state can work all the ports they can place here, which is granted not that many. But quick look through like tech tree and laws. Laissez-faire mercantilism, so unchanged. Monarchy, one of the last few monarchies in the game, I think, out of the player nation. Iberia is a republic, if I recall. Russia is, of course, a republic. Italy is a theocracy. Republic. Some of them are. Scandinavia is a monarchy. Byzantium as well. I think Austria goes to B, simply because they're a great power, and sure, I mean, they expanded a little bit to the south. They lost the stuff they're supposed to lose to Italy. They have, technically speaking, a colonial empire. But their power block is not that impressive. And just the effect they had on the game, it's just like one time the biggest impact Austria had on the campaign was almost getting partitioned by all of their navals together at the same time. And they did build a really strong economy, like number 4 in GDP, higher than Great Britain. This is pretty nice, but I think for like the effect on the game as a great power, it was pretty minimal, all things considered. So I know what they were going for, but I like to see great powers being entertaining for my amusement. And unfortunately, I didn't see much of that from Austria. Okay, it's not looking too unbalanced. Wish we could place some nations in C tier, but I don't think that's going to be happening, unfortunately. Unless someone gets put there forcefully, which is also possible. And Russia. I think that was Russia or United States the highest in GDP in the end. Yeah, of course, a bit of debt from wars. I mean, you can use nulls for tier list as long until I actually get to voting the awards. So there's still some time. Yeah, Russia is first in GDP by a quite significant margin as well. Of course, old tech, long time ago done. They are a republic. Pretty much American style, except for parliamentary republic. It wasn't enforced on them, of course. And they still have tenant farmers, which is interesting. They do not start with this, but usually you don't stay on them. That they did have a civil war. Austria up, chips woke up. Yep, it's to be expected. Okay, so what else? They do have a beautiful cancellerin, or however you call it, an anarchist as well. A huge military, pretty strong navy, not massive, but pretty strong. And the power block is Russia itself. They do have Ethiopia, which they gained pretty early on, and they do have Chile. They did grab a bit of Bulgaria. They control everything they are supposed to be controlling in Asia, but well, they do control a bit more in Japan. Austria up again. People are starting to use their nulls. I think even though Russia is doing very well, I don't think they did in this campaign a move like a decapitation move. I know like the Russian player is really happy about Germany pretty much never forming in this campaign, but I think it's more goes more on the side of French achievements than Germans, simply because like Germany and France are always going to be naturally competing over unification, or Austria and Germany potentially. But Russia really, even though they don't necessarily want a united Germany, they are not instantly starting a conflict with them just naturally through the campaign. I think Russia is going to go into A for the time being because, well, we shall see. The economic and diplomatic military power is pushing it up though, but sure, the economic power is huge, but of course it's always going to be huge for Russia. And military is strong, but they did lose the war against France, for Belgium, for example. Iberia up. Iberia up. Okay. It's an unexpected move from Chips. Twice in the the last war was United States and Russia versus France, so that's not really like, you know, if Russia beat United States, now that would be pretty impressive. And then UK and France and Germany versus Russia. France? Did France fight in that war? Or both France and UK? I don't think it was like all of them. Maybe I'm misremembering something. I think some people just didn't commit then, because I don't remember that much fighting for this one. Well, there are truces here. But I don't remember this war that well, so I'm going to pretend it didn't happen. And let's keep going, because it's actually starting to get late, and we have a lot more awards to go through after the tier list, which is thankfully almost done. Just it's time to sink Simon's nose by putting him into Ottoman tier. Italy, let's go. The Giac treatment, so-called. So Italy. They did manage to get, they beat Austria in a 1v1, which is not a great great achievement by Austria by any means. They are a theocracy still, which is pretty nice. And how much clout do their Catholic Church have? It's less than Iberia, I think. Yep, Iberia actually has more strength in Catholic Church. Yeah, I mean, it's you're Russia not getting an S. It's kind of like Great Britain not getting S in most campaigns. I think like Russia being number one in a lot of positions, like Russia, UK or United States. I mean, mostly United States or Russia are kind of predestined to be number one in most categories. I think you need to do something entertaining to me to be put into S tier. But yeah, Italy. So they're not part of any power bloc. They're kind of really forcefully neutral. They do have Tripolitania, and I think this is the extent of their colonial empire, pretty much. Of course, all the tech done, I assume. They are in their own market. Kimo has 50 million in here. Population, not too bad. Silk is a problem. And maybe some kind of issue with states appearing, or like someone changed their trade routes. Are there a leader in production in something? Sulfur number 2, luxury clothes number 3, and silk number 3, and they're still missing silk. They're exporting 10k, okay. So the thing about Italy is, unlike Spain, they did remain, they had a bit more of an independent strategy, though their independent strategy was anti-Austria for the most part, so they were ready to ally with pretty much anyone who would support them in that. And the problem, they just didn't have an opportunity to do it till relatively late in the campaign. What I'm thinking about is Italy, like pretty much what they did was take the stuff they're kind of supposed to take. And it's not as easy as some of the other stuff that's supposed to happen. I think it's potentially more difficult for Italy to take all of the Italian states than, for example, for Germany to take Alsace-Lorraine. Probably in most campaigns. It's certainly harder to do it without allies. Yeah, it was a fair 1v1. Just that there's nothing much for Italy outside of actually unifying itself. Yeah, I mean, it was just tipped against them simply because Austria is, in theory, much, maybe I shouldn't say much stronger, much bigger, just they have like double their population now, and it was pretty much the case before because now they have the Venetia and Lombardy. I think it's A, but just barely, I think. It has to be A. recreating the, well, let's say, historical outcome. Well, a slight amount. The historical outcome didn't have Istria, I think, and South Tyrol. I'm not sure when did they get South Tyrol. I think I'd be hard pressed to give them S, so it has to be A, I think. Iran or US of A? Let's see. Okay, so the state is a bit weird in Victoria Free. They got parts of South Tyrol. Okay. Iran, the oil master and the fine arts master, apparently. And they're looking quite fat on demand, got to say, on the map. They got a bit of the Ottomans in Basra, which is a pretty good state. They made good use of it. Organic oil master, yeah, important for advertisements. And they did expand, like they got a chunk of Pakistan. I mean, maybe even all of Pakistan, to be honest. Not exactly sure how the borders end up being. And Afghanistan, of course, as well. So they are quite long for an Iran. Theocracy, laissez-faire, universal suffrage, hereditary bureaucrats. Okay, religious schools. I wonder if it was just forgotten of. It was wouldn't be even that hard to change. Maybe it's difficult to make a legitimate government with them. Take that speech. Yeah, religious institutions kind of suck. And there's a lot of loyalists. And yeah, the tech problems are still, compared to some nations we've seen, pretty good, pretty damn good tech. Of course, the most interesting stuff about Iran is fine art production, also opium production. They're not even in top 3 for oil production. They're number 4. Okay, which is what, damn, half of what Austria is producing. The extra oil buildings are really giving you a lot of stuff. And yeah, they were like independent because they got guaranteed by Russia and UK pretty early on in the campaign. Then they joined the Byzantine bloc and slowly expanded, just gained bits of and pieces here and there. I think it's a perfectly fine A for the time being. And we can finally move to the last nation on the wheel. Yay! So let's look at the US of A. Of course, the first thing that you get to see is Canada, though they only got this at the last session, even though they tried to get it before. It's only in the last session that they managed to get it, but they didn't get Alaska in the end. Overall, not that much pushing the colonial Europeans away. This is a technical issue, I assume, because they got the Canada as a subject, and this is actually part of British Republic proper. And they did manage to create a power block that goes from the north to the south of Americas. Not quite to the very south because of meddling Chile, but this is still pretty nice. They do have a small but present African colonies. And, well, they are, by extension, the overlord of Japan. And, of course, Hawaii as well. Number 2 in economy. Population is absolutely massive. Like the growth of the United States. I think they were one of the first nations to have multiculturalism, which allowed them to really go. Like, if the game continued to run for a few more years, who knows if they wouldn't be able to overtake like Russia and India. Probably not China anytime soon. Still. Of course, nothing to see in the technology tree. American Republic, as you'd expect. 100% legitimacy. Which feels pretty nice. With the kind of split coalition over here. Probably should have looked a bit more into markets, but then markets are kind of vulnerable to disruptions like what was happening to South German Federation. They talk about North Germany at any point. I don't think I have North Germany on the thing. This will need to be fixed. Okay, let's use German flag because I don't see the Prussian one. Yeah, okay, so unfortunately this is not going to be the end. But yeah, I think United States also getting very close to the S tier. But I think they still, like, Canada is putting them almost there, but they need something more. I think if they got all of the Americas in their power block or kicked out a bit more Europeans like Cuba and Alaska, and I mean they did take this part from France, so this is something. I think close, but the United States still end up in A. And let's get the final one. What will happen when I click the wheel when it's empty? Will it still just go around? No. Ah, sad. So let's go to Germany, which is a nation that had many adventures throughout this campaign. They were uniting, disuniting, almost taking Alsace-Lorraine, then losing Alsace-Lorraine and more, getting Belgium into Zollverein, getting Scandinavia into Zollverein, dissolving Zollverein, so there's no longer a German power bloc, except the forever alone Metternich system. And they are in default, which is fitting way to show the end for this very adventurous Germany. They are right after the war, so they are suffering a bit smaller issues than South German market, but similar in effect. Yeah, the costs are pretty high of everything. I think it will have fixed itself really quickly. The trade was really effective in this campaign, and because they have access to the sea, they would have been just flowing with engines pretty soon, I'm pretty sure. A lot of planes, of course, because they have, wow, sulfur and steel at -75. Their construction is cheap, at least. That was construction is actually one of the reasons Germany suffered a lot throughout this campaign. They didn't really ever manage to catch up in construction to other great powers. So effectively they stayed more like on the Dutch or Iberian level as a technically speaking great power, but kind of behind everyone else. And right now it's, of course, even worse. And they never managed to unify. And not only they didn't manage to unify, they actually lost a chunk of Germany. I don't think they will go into the Ottoman. Because they are still a great power. It's not like a total collapse of the nation. And sure, they are like in bankruptcy right now, but this is right after war. I think they still go into D tier. For now. Their GP for a year. Yeah, okay. The 1400 out of requires 70. But we are judging the end of the campaign. Actually, let's see. What's the insignificant tier? Prestige barrier. They wouldn't be. They would be a minor power, so I have to correct your assumptions. If Austria have taken Silesia, they would probably end up in the Ottoman tier. But they didn't. Austria would probably end up in a higher tier as well from the start. Okay, so this is the tier list. There's going to be, let's say, 1 more minute for any movements if anyone wants to do them. Kimi still has his free movement on the tier list. And Hammercoat has a free movement because he guessed how many times I won in Fishy. So let me ping them just in case. Russia up with the free movement, okay. That's fair. Bloop. Kimi might not be here. Actually, maybe I should have done votes earlier in the stream because now more people are gone. And I think there were a few more. It's hard to say for me because the number of viewers doesn't really tell you the truth usually with such small numbers. Okay, let's give Kimi 20 more seconds. And anyone else who wants to make a move on the tier list, otherwise it's going to be fixed forever and ever. Where is Austria? Austria is in S. I don't think many people put any bets on the prediction. Well, someone made some. Not that many though. And unfortunately everyone is going to lose. No, Kimi, you have a free movement because you were effectively the first one who... Yeah, you have the free one. You put the most nominations for the votes because you were the first one, but it still counts. It's actually a decent amount of nominations for every award, so I'm still happy about that. I think only for there were too many nominations for spots. Austria down a tier. Okay, so this is going to make things interesting. Austria up. I don't think it's going to last long because Kimi doesn't have nulls. Okay. First, second, and it's over. And Austria ends up higher on the tier list. Which means Hammerhout loses all the nulls that were bet on the Kimi result, which is granted not that many. And now it's time for me to reset the thing. Why is the tier list? Why was the tier list gone for a second? So now we're switching into the voting overview. This is a bit of an experiment, so let's see how it looks. Wait, is it working? Yes, it is. Okay. So let's start. The first vote is going to be the vote for best friend. And the potential candidates are going to be Chile, North German Federation, South German Federation, France and Spain. And of course, as always, it's a fully democratic vote. But your wealth in nulls also gets a vote, because, as you know, money votes in all democracies. Especially those that care about wealth. And unfortunately, Russia and Spain were also nominated. Let's 1 minute should be enough for votes. So, click fast stuff. Just 1 minute. Russia and United States were also nominated for this award, but unfortunately, because they were nominated last and they didn't get any additional votes, they didn't get anything. It looks like everyone just used their natural votes, and the result is pretty clear. I'm interested that Spain is the one leading. I'm not sure. Can you guys see who's leading in the vote? Because currently it's Spain, and I'm actually kind of surprised because obviously France would vote for it. Yes, Spain was loyal the entire game. That's true. It's fair. Chile wasn't. It's true as well. And France, I guess great powers are never that great of a friend. South German Federation was also not the best friend. Okay, so really strong win for Spain. And now in order to do this, we should have done this before, but this would be way too many flags. Just give me a second until I find the correct... Oh, you know what? This is going to be... I will do this in a second. Let's just do the new vote, and then I will use this time to add the flag of Spain in there. So who is going to be the Ottomans of the campaign? The possible candidates are North German Federation, which received 4 votes in the nomination phase. So maybe they should have been in the Ottoman tier. Scandinavia. And Grand Colombia. I wonder who nominated that one. So you guys vote on that, and I'm going to be doing some technical stuff. I wonder who voted for Grand Colombia first. Okay, Spain. If has nulls? Maybe it's not going to be Grand Colombia. People are just really careful about their nulls from what I've seen. You know, you just want to keep your advantage. It's like, you know, Cold War. If you use all your nulls, then if there's a new adversary, you might not be able to defend yourself. Why did it put all those maps, those flags? So North German Federation won. There were even some votes for Scandinavia, surprisingly enough. So it's going to be NGF for the Ottomans, Spain for friend. Fortunately, this is taking me a bit longer to put them on actual UI. But a most spectacular disaster. And this time we have as nominees Korea, which is one of the few AI nations on the awards, Belgium, which got 3 nominations, and North German Federation, which got 2 nominations. I actually have no clue who's going to win this one, to be honest. I don't think it's going to be North German Federation, but between Korea and Belgium I have no clue. Now, where the heck did I put all of my flags? Did I do it over here? No. When I put them in the tier list, it just finds the folder automatically, and I kind of forgot where I put it. Oh, I see. Okay. Now we're cooking. Oh my god, it's perfectly balanced. Can Korea be blamed for the disaster? Well, they didn't prevent it. And they did get a lot of help to undo it, and they did pretty much nothing. So it's Belgium. So now we're almost halfway through the awards. Now it's going to be Line Go Up Nation. Which is pretty much the economic award for this campaign. And we have Russia, Iran. Iran got more nominations than Russia, interestingly enough. And the Netherlands, which is the only award I was nominated for, which I'm happy to get at least one, to be honest. Yeah, you guys can see, I will be putting flag on the UIs, but I couldn't find the flags. So it was taking me a bit of time, but now I got it, so I'm just going to be putting them in a second. And now it's Spain. There you go. Well, it's not the prettiest, but it has to work. In percentage terms, Netherlands had the highest growth, so objectively the best Line Go Up nation. Well, I cannot find the fault in your logic, honestly, Chips. I think you're 100% correct. Unfortunately, I don't think the people agree with you. Though it is, wow, people are using their nulls for real. Though it is Simon versus Hammers, so... Oh my god! It's a tie! So it's both Russia and Iran that win this. So now, so Russia and Iran both win the award. I will be putting them... I think I will be putting all of those flags in a second after we do the awards. But yeah, you both get the win. And we go into the Metternich Hill Award. Metternich? That's how you pronounce it? I don't think so. Which is basically the Diplomacy Award. And it can go to Grand Colombia, which got quite a few nominations, Byzantium, and Austria, which is assumed people just nominated it because it has the Metternich. So it makes sense, I suppose. I assume Grand Colombia is going to win this one because it's the crowd favor, but maybe it's going to be Byzantium. Unless Chips really digs deep into his pocket. As the conservative player, yeah. This could be also the awards are intentionally vague. Or the most dictatorial player. Yeah, I mean, that's up to interpretation. Oh, is it actually going to be Austria? I assume it's just Chips voting for himself. Which removes all diplomatic connotations from this award. If the leader is going to... victory is going to be decided just by one person. Oh, apparently Chips had help. But still, Austria wins this one. So Austria is going to be having an award in the end. So now we go into Paraguayan military spirit. Okay, so apparently Austria had only voted half of the votes for themselves. Now we go into Paraguayan military spirit, which has the nominees of Belgium, Italy, and Chile. Looks like people mostly interpreted it as a kind of a smaller nation beating the bigger nation award. I thought about it more as more generally just military award. But this is a fair interpretation as well. I think Chile is going to win this one. Even though Belgium probably deserves it more, I think Chile is a bit more of a crowd favor, but maybe I'm wrong. Italy for sure doesn't have that many friends, apparently. Okay, looks like people disagree. Yeah, that's. I realize that's a possible interpretation, but you know, it's supposed to be interpreted as whatever you decide. Belgium was the nation that either employed of their troops, their population in the military or in the military production. And yeah, it is Belgium that wins this one, handily. And now we go into player of the role, which due to my unfortunate misspelling was player of the role at the beginning. So few people misunderstand the award. So we got Chile, Russia, and the United States, which perhaps is player of the troll. Yeah, it is a bit of a that's what it ended up being, unfortunately. I don't think United States has big chance for this one, unless I'm perhaps wrong. Yeah, actual successful military award. Yeah, I mean, that would be just kind of like a swagger award, I guess. Georgia showed up. Hello. France, don't think they won any awards. Unfortunately, because I didn't put flags into OBS, it's I'm gonna put the awards in a second after we're done with voting. And Chile wins this. No nulls used. This one was, of course, finally Chile the crowd favor. Did they win anything else? This is actually, despite Chile being nominated for quite a few things, this is the first thing they won. So now we go to the grand finale of Victoria Victory, and we actually... this is one of the awards that has full set of nominees. So we have United States, Russia, France. Actually not, because Russia is twice. Which, if I wanted to sabotage the Russian award process, I would add them twice, but we are not corrupt. All lobbying done is perfectly legal. Now, I would think, because I don't think United States are here, I would think it would be between United States and France, between Russia and France, but maybe, because Russia is always going to be the contender, but maybe everyone else picks a middle layer candidate, like Gran Colombia, and votes for them. Because not a lot of people want to vote for France, not a lot of people want to vote for the United States, but Gran Colombia, it's fine. Not many more nulls to play with. How are you running out of nulls? Oh, what? Looks like people disagree with not voting for France. Oh my god. France won with 28 votes from 7 people. Okay, Hammerhead, looks like it was a bit of a surprise attack. Yeah, Hammerhead couldn't be running out of nulls. It was impossible. So France in the end wins Victoria Victory, which I think is fair enough. Kimi has 24 nulls. You should have been watching more fishes. Is enough. Okay, so I think this is going to be it for the awards and tier list. So thanks for watching. I'm going to be spending a minute still to finish up the flags. Chips sends a message, Kimi smells, and Kimi answers, Kimi smells good. This rivalry continues. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping the stream for a second because I want to take a screenshot of all the flags actually on the thing. So yeah, and thanks to Hammerhot for apparently being the sponsor of this stream somehow. Okay, so see ya guys.